So, with this notion, I'll start with that. Recently, Munawar Faruqi, Safura Jagar, Richa Bharti, Soma Ranade, Arnab Goswami, Aparna Purohit, Kapan Sindaki, and many more were lying in fulcrum, tossing left and right. The uniformity in applying any law is one of the important factor in constitutional setup. Not as ideally, but we can do some sort of manifestation can be there. Ensuring uniformity, we can ensure the personal liberty, which is given by Constitution under the Article 21. The accomplishment of that principle is the aim, but the procedure established by law is a certain exceptions which have been created by what the constitutional makers thought that there should be some sort of reasonable restriction should be there, and their contention was clearly backed up in the Khadak Singh versus State of UP, where the Supreme Court also said that procedure established by law can be incorporated as it is also if there is some sort of reasonable restriction should be there. Without any unreasonability, can't be there. One such example is bail. The bail is a very controversial topic, oftenly because of the drafting, we can say, because of the applicability that the bail has. Bail is one of the legal right, and it was famously pointed out that bail is a right, jail is an exception by Mr. Justice Krishna Iyer in the state of Rajasthan versus Balachan. And there are certain factors which are pertaining to bail. For example, that if somebody have certain conditions and some of the principle have laid down that if the things are fit in those principles, the bail should be given. But as Justice Chandrachud also pointed out that the one day of any day of deprivation of personal liberty is too many. The unanimity and the so much sensitively often Supreme Court have pointed out that deprivation of personal liberty is a very, very grave and a very grave offense, or it's like questioning the whole setup of the Constitution if there is some sort of infringement in the Personal Liberty Act itself. But bail has two conflicting issues. One hand, it supports that cardinal principle of the criminal justice that innocent until proven guilty. But at the second point, it creates a haphazard by shielding accused, and due to that, misadventure can be created. Rightly pointed out in the Superintendent of Remembrance Legal Advisor versus Amiya Kumar, to create a balance between it, legislature, since exception, has granted the power of discretion to court, especially in the non-bailable offences. Under 437, 438 and 439 of CRPC, the use of discretion is very wide in nature. So it creates a reasonable obligation on court of the bail should be used judicially. As it was again pointed out by Mr. Justice Krishna Iyer that bail is a judicial task, not a ministerial task. And it was also correctly pointed that by Mr. Justice Manfield that while granting bail, one should be used in a sound and a very judicious manner, not on a vague, arbitrary, or any sense of humor should be incorporated while granting any bail. Especially in 268th Law Commission report, it was also noted that some sort of uniformity there should be there to grant bail so that the proper objective of bail can be accomplished and the personal liberty can be protected of the person. But in the frequent cases, frequent time, there are some sort of discrepancies we have seen upon. But the thing is, we have a very well settled precedents for that. So I would like to start with Mr. Gautam Kumar sir to kindly open the discussion, and also want to cover the aspect that discretion has a very wide scope and amplitude, but uniformity needed to be controlled. Considering the nature of bail, what should be court seek, discretion or uniformity, and why? So please, 5 minutes to you, sir.
Thank you, Shreyansh, for this topic. And the topic which has been chosen is, yes, it's actually...
Gautam.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute. Shreyansh, एक बार वो बता दो, time और सबका वो बता दो.
Yes, sir. Okay. Sir, for the opening remarks, you have 5 minutes for each panelist. And certainly the thing is, at things pass on, the conclusion remark will be of 2 minutes to each of the panelists. And certainly the Now the question round will be open after the opening remark will be taken from all the panelists, and certainly the things will goes on. You have 5 minutes to open the panel, sir.
Thank you, Shreyansh. Yes, thank you, Mr. Ayush. Thank you, Anu, as in the panel. And with respect in this regard, how Shreyansh has started with this aspect of bail. Now, see, bail and the inconsistency in bail and the court is having an unfettered discretion as the topic suggests. So when we start with the aspect of bail, now we start with the aspect of taking it from the constitutional perspective, means taking it from the perspective of a fundamental right which we have. That is a personal liberty and life and personal liberty under Article 21. So if a particular person is being arrested and an FIR is being lodged against him, now does it mean that there is that he has committed the offense? The societal interest as well as the victim interest needs to be balanced. Looking at the current scenario with regard to the jurisprudence of bail which the court has. Now, taking it further, not only limiting it to the regular bail or the interim bail or the anticipatory bail we have. Recently, you all must have come across with respect to the conflicting opinion of high courts with respect to the statutory bail given under the CRPC under 167 subsection 2. So, bail and the court's discretion, in particular the high courts. Actually, the high courts is exercising a lot of discretion whether granting bail or not granting bail. And the high courts are having a lot of different opinion in this regard with respect to the grant of bail or not to grant bail. So when we refer to section 437 or section 438 or 439 and so, under 437, what can be seen is with respect to the exercise of discretion is generally what we find out. And as Ayush is a practicing advocate, so Mr. Ayush should be telling us in a more better way, that the magistrates generally are not actually exercising this discretion of granting. If you approach the magistrate, but discretion is lacking with the magistrate, maybe because of what they may have inculcated by now, or the practices they are having. And even to the court of session also, the court of session is also not much inclined with respect to the aspect of grant of bail. Looking at even the special laws also, looking at even the general law also. So this unfettered discretion, to whom actually we are referring to this particular aspect? Are we here referring to this aspect with respect to the constitutional courts, wherein the High Court and the Supreme Court are actually exercising this discretion? As you started with, as Shreyansh started with the aspect with respect to Arnab Goswami, that the court in this case said the deprivation of liberty for a single day is too many. And this is being said by Justice Chandrachud in this regard. On the other hand, there are a lot of cases where the bail is being denied to persons with the aspect of, like many cases, with the aspect of putting certain conditions on the person. Now, taking this further, I just want to bring out that while granting bail, what consideration should be there with the court? Taking a case in this regard, I wish to bring a case which is being decided in 2018. Anil Kumar Yadav versus State, a 2018 judgment wherein the court again referred with respect to what relevant considerations can be there. It provided certain conditions wherein the nature of seriousness of the offense is to be taken into consideration at the time of granting bail. The character of the evidence and circumstances which are peculiar to the accused, and likelihood of the accused fleeing from justice. The impact that his release may make the prosecution witness its impact on the society, and likelihood of his tampering. So the list which is being given is not exhaustive in nature, but the court has to apply its judicial mind with respect to this principle of bail. Now, looking at in the further discussion which may have, looking in this perspective, don't you think from the relevant considerations at the time of granting bail, now the courts have deviated in putting certain conditions which are not required in the exercise of the discretion at the time of granting bail. And the certain examples are being given with respect to Parna case and so. So, this particular discretion at the time of granting bail, in particular by the apex court or by the Supreme Court, we have seen a lot many times that the Supreme Court is saying to the high courts, and even in one case, I just give you, even in the case of this Aparna case wherein the K.Q. Venugopal made certain statements with regard to the opinion of the High Court, wherein the orders of the High Court should be condemned with respect to how, in the way at present the High Courts of certain states are exercising jurisdiction with respect to grant of bail. So with this, I think Shreyansh, we may proceed further and continue with the other panels.
Thank you, sir. I will now go to Mr. Anubhav, sir. Sir, I would like to take your opening remarks, and I would also like that you cover the aspect that sir have pointed out, that fulcrum between certain conditions propounded while granting bail, and yet discretion have not been removed yet. Discretion has not been removed by the legislature. So whether it is high time to change it or it should be continued. Over to you, sir. 5 minutes to you.
Thank you, Shreyansh, and thank you others. I can see many of my students also who have joined. Certainly, though not offline, at least online, I am able to contact with you people, connect with you all. And it's a very wonderful topic. When this topic was suggested to me to speak on this particular topic, and I had a discussion with my co-panelist Gautam and Shikhar, we certainly thought that it's a very good topic, and it's quite relevant topic, because after the topic was decided, then the Supreme Court came up with this landmark case of Aparna, in which the court laid down certain guidelines, and which I will be highlighting today in my short discussion, which we are going to have. So certainly this idea of the bail, in fact, if you see the scheme of the CRPC, we are already working. In fact, Gautam has also been working on this. We are working on the Committee on Criminal Reforms, in which we are trying to bring in those reforms. And so this entire CRPC, if you see the scheme, there is a question of balance always, right? Which you, Shreyansh, you intend to, you are asking me to highlight, is the exact balance or the fulcrum on which we have to balance both the sides. And one, in case of bail, is the aspect of personal liberty, and another is the safety and security of the citizens and the maintenance of the law and order on one hand. So both these things are required to be handled, and both the things are required to be balanced in the proper way. And the law is that instrument which will balance these two aspects. The law of bails, how it has developed and how it has been introduced in 1973 CRPC, if you see, it works on two parameters. One, it provides certain conditions, it provides certain parameters, it provides certain guidelines and rules that has to be applied, and that is equally applicable for the case, or in the case of bail also, which is provided under 437 as in case of conditional bail. Similarly applicable to 439 also, and then you have the anticipatory bail under 438 and all those provisions. Introduction of 436 capital A also. While on the other hand, it also provides a reasonable kind of discretion. Now, discretion is a very important thing which we are discussing here. Discretion, the availability of discretion is very, very important. It cannot be ruled out. And judicial discretion in that manner, I always say that there is a requirement of discretion, because you cannot compare the cases. You cannot weigh each and every case in the same manner. The cases might have different facts and circumstances. They might be having different set of requirements for the accused person also. And there can be several set of conditions which may be imposed against the accused person, and so the discretion. But because with the discretion comes a lot of, whims and fancies, and with discretion comes a lot of unbridled powers. And with respect to that, in case of judiciary, we have seen several examples. And to quote a few, even from last year from the Jharkhand, one of the courts in Jharkhand, the direction which was made by the lower court was that the condition for bail would be distribution of copies of Quran. Now, that might have been thought by the court to be a condition which is important for granting of bail. But the discretion, which was done away, this condition was later on taken away. But this caused a lot of hue and cry also. You must have been following this particular news. So this was done away, and these conditions, there are certain other conditions which have been imposed, like tree plantation, you do certain social services, you know, these kind of conditions have always been imposed by the courts for bail. But there are cases wherein the courts have imposed heavy bail amount for or surety for 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees. And that kind of practice have been time and again rejected by the Supreme Court, by the judgments of the Supreme Court. In fact, Justice Krishna here in one of his judgments has only mentioned that to the poor and the underprivileged people, you cannot have such an amount that it actually defeats the whole idea of bail. The idea of bail as a rule and jail as an exception is the idea so that the personal liberty can be, the personal liberty, which is a very cherished right guaranteed by the Constitution, can be protected, can be maintained. And that is why the discretion which is available to the court should not be exercised in an unfair or an unreasonable manner. And we cannot take away this the Maneka Gandhi's case where the court clearly said that the procedure which has to be there, it has to be just, fair and reasonable. So whatever discretion is available with the courts, that discretion requires proper guidance. In fact, with the discretion, we lack some sort of guidance. And again, the recent judgment only, if you see, the court has imposed a condition for bail up to the accused person, in the Aparna Bhatt's case, that the accused person has to, the victim has to tie a rakhi in the hands of, on the hands of the accused person to get a bail. Now, it is not just a question of understanding of the feminist perspective from which the law is to be read. And it is a very important question that has been raised by the court in this case, that the reading of law that has been done in the past several decades has been, there is a great problem with that the masculine ideas or the patriarchal notions have already been existed in the reading of the laws. So the courts, if these things are coming from the courts in the judgments in their orders, they are really problematic. And these ideas that the victim shall come in contact with the accused person should also be, it should also be discouraged. So these kind of conditions are actually creating a lot of problem in hue and cry. You have seen in case of Arnab Goswami, case-to-case basis, the cases which are taken up by the courts, it is a complete discretion of the courts to take up a particular matter. Even the Supreme Court, which takes up a particular bail matter before it and ignores the others matter. We see Gautam Navlakha's case, and there are several other cases in which you can see the pattern. So always when you have a discretion available with the court, that discretion is questioned, and there is a requirement to have that balance. And what I feel is that we need to bring those mentioned guidelines, those mentioned requirements, but then we also need to have that scope for the discretion, guided discretion, which must be available with the court so that injustice may not be caused in that particular case, so that the right of bail might not get defeated actually. We often see like in that particular, what was the movie? Singham. That particular movie, we all are able to relate with the movies very often. And you see that particular condition that you have to sign. And these are the conditions which are reasonably imposed by the courts, which they consider. But otherwise, there are only 4 important conditions which are mentioned under 437. The court need to consider that the accused person is not going to tamper the evidences. The accused person is not going to threaten the witnesses of in the case. The accused person is giving a guarantee to appear before the court as and when required. That is throughout the trial, and that is the idea of arrest. That is the idea to have that particular person, to bring that particular person on trial. And so the bail, that is the conditional release of the person, has to be a reasonable condition. And we have to certainly work on that particular. With this particular note, I would over to Shreyans. And I think the practicing lawyers would be in a better position to throw some light on this.
Thank you, sir. You rightly pointed out some of the very controversial bail orders which were granted, and for the participants and for the panelists also, I will name that 2 cases. Soma Ranade, former BJP member, was Jharkhand High Court granted him bail on the condition that he should download Arogya Setu and Richa Bharati distribution of Quran that sir has rightly pointed out. So I will come to Mr. Ayush Arora, sir, since he is a practicing lawyer. And so I want to know what your take on this was, take on this on discretion. And one thing I also want to cover that these type of orders which are passing on by the court, like for the interest of justice, like it is one of the conditions of for the interest of justice, court have the power to pass certain orders. So how it leads to violation of Article 14 per se? Over to you, sir.
So first of all, I would first of all, tell both the professors that it was a high quality exposition on the law of bail. And if I could contribute a little bit, it would be an honor for me. Is the little practical exposure that I got by fortune because I'm practicing with a lawyer, a very senior lawyer in the trial court. So as a student of law, I also read, bail is the rule, jail is the exception. And I read all of it. So then I went to the court, and then I got to know that what happened is that there was a matter in which the police arrested a person. Then what happened is that the police investigated the matter, whatever they could get from that man in 24 hours, they presented that man in front of the magistrate. They did not want any further police remand of that person. So I was of the view that, sir, now he will get bail, or the police officer himself under 169 would say that because, we feel that there is nothing more to investigate and no case is made out, so we would release the person. It is that day I realized that it is the mechanical procedure of the court that once a person is arrested by the police officer for a cognizable offense, the person is presented in front of the magistrate within 24 hours. If the police does not get the remand, the person is automatically shifted to judicial custody. There is no bail given, even if the bail is demanded. It's sparingly and cautiously used, despite all the recommendations, all the suggestions by the Supreme Court that you should use this. Then I asked my sir that, sir, why is it that the magistrate does not give out bail easily and he would mechanically throw the person in judicial custody, even if the investigative agency is not seeking a police remand? He told me, Ayush, that it's a game of annual confidentiality report. The magistrate, though being an ambassador of the judicial services in this country, 85% of the people interact with the magistrate directly. Very, a minority reaches to the High Court and the Supreme Court. A magistrate in this country is not empowered. I'll give you an example. In Allahabad, in UP, what happened is that a person on bail went to the victim and he, I guess, murdered the victim's father. I was sitting with one of my seniors. He's serving as a metropolitan magistrate in Saket Court. He said, Ayush, this man will never be elevated to the High Court. This man's ACR is now the worst ACR that will ever be in his cadre. That means that any bail order that is overruled above in the High Court, any bail order that has adverse consequences is then added to the annual confidentiality report of the magistrate. And the magistrate loses all prospects to get promoted to the High Court. So that is the fear in the mind of a magistrate, that if I pass a bail order, if I exercise my judicial discretion in this matter, and then he goes on to tamper the witness or intimidate the witnesses or goes and, and effect some harm to the victim, then I will be in peril. So that's number one. I would expound upon that further, but I will also give you the example of Riya Chakrabarti. So Riya Chakrabarti matter, what happened is that the NCB, when Riya Chakrabarti was produced in front of the magistrate, in its application did not demand a police remand. It did not demand for remand. It asked for judicial custody. If I would have been the judge, I would have said that the investigative agencies does not require any kind of time for further investigation. They are satisfied. Also, NCB was the fourth investigative agency inquiring into the matter. She was investigated by the Mumbai police. She was investigated by the CBI. She was investigated by the Enforcement Directorate, and her track record was absolutely clean. She was cooperating with each and every investigative agency. So I, as a magistrate, would have given her the benefit of doubt that because she is a very known person in the society, her chances of absconding are very less, because the list of prosecution witnesses is not yet filed, and therefore there is no chance that she can go further on and intimidate those witnesses. Nor do I feel by the demeanor of the accused that she will also tamper with the evidence, because there's no evidence yet presented. I would have granted bail, but the bail was not granted. The matter went to the Bombay High Court. The Bombay High Court, after conclusion of the hearing, reserved the order for the next 10 days and then passed the order. So yes, there's a discrepancy. My second point is, that was exactly pointed by Abhinav sir, that it's a long gone case, that when the matter will reach to the magistrate is something else. when the matter will reach to the Supreme Court judge, is something else. The first discretion, the unfettered discretion, is that of the registry. Imagine that the registry is exercising a better jurisdiction than the Chief Justice of India. The registry is all in all, by and large. And just if you are in some misconception that, this is this new concept of something after 2014 happened, that, only priority matters get listed in the Supreme Court. I was so surprised to see a judgment called Bihar Legal Support Society versus Chief Justice of India. It's a 1986 judgment. It's a judgment in which Bihar Legal Support Society, a non-government organization, filed a writ petition, a public interest litigation in the form of writ petition, stating that, we are seeing that VVIP matters are getting listed far before than those of the poor people. There should be some kind of setup, some kind of norm that the registry should follow, some algorithm, some calculation. It's so opaque that which matter will get listed before, which matter will not get listed before. The Supreme Court summarily dismissed this petition and said that, look, you don't worry, we are giving preferential treatment to the poor people of this country, which is not true. And the Supreme Court itself has conceded this fact in the judgments like Hussain Ara Khatun versus, State of Bihar in 1980, in which it has said that there are thousands and thousands of people under trial in this country. The third part, and which is the final part in my opening remark, that I would, Abhinav sir again point a very important point in which he said that it was Justice Krishna Iyer that stated that the money bonds, they are so excessive, 50,000, 1 lakh, they are so excessive that the very purpose of bail is defeated. And that is very true. So Justice Krishna Iyer, even in Hussain Ara Khatun, Justice Bhagwati stated that why is it that this monetary superstition is considered something so beyond that, the only deterrent that the courts believe that the person will be compelled to appear in front of us is the monetary compensation. That you file a bond of 50,000 rupees and we will be able to get that person's appearance. That should not be the only norm. And I would read out to you, they said that family ties, roots in community, membership of a stable organization should prevail to ensure that the accused does not flee justice. Little example, Riya Chakrabarti, a well-known Bollywood star. What were her opportunities and her possibilities that she could flee the system of justice? Very less, very rare. So therefore, the Supreme Court should
possibilities that she could flee the system of justice. Very less, very.
Should I continue? Just last time I would.
Ayush, your 5 minutes are completed, but you can conclude them within 30 seconds if you want to.
Okay, I would just conclude by saying that because of this registry problem, I would just quote one line that senior advocate Dushyant Dwivedi, then president of Supreme Court Bar Association, mentioned to the registry, and he clearly mentioned in his letter to Chief Justice of India, and he stated that, sir, it gives an impression that the clients represented by certain lawyers get special treatment in the Honorable Supreme Court of India. Therefore, your leadership is under question. So this is my submission for the bail, and please proceed. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Ayush, sir. Thank you. It was a very knowledgeable facts you presented in the practical reality. What is the application of bail is there? Sir, now we'll shift to Mr. Gautam, sir. Again, this question, as we are discussing about the personal liberty. So, Article 32 and Article 226 can't be untouched in this regard. So recently, Supreme Court have pointed out that bail can be granted invoking Article 226. Recently, Supreme Court have pointed out. So whether it seems counterproductive, because as you earlier mentioned by Mr. Anubhav sir and by you also, sir, that there is not any type of uniformity exist between the high courts or regarding granting bail. Sir, will it be counterproductive because it will same time burden the court? And the personal liberty is like, it's a far-fetched dream again for this, on this context, sir.
Yes, Shreyans, just taking it from there. See, now again, we have to understand this aspect of with respect to the rights of the accused and the rights of the victim also. Balancing the society, balancing the interest. Now, 226 you are referring to, I will refer not only 226, I will refer to 482 also. Things are being taken under 482 where the high courts are exercising. There also there is no uniformity with respect to whether 482 should be exercised or 439 should be exercised with respect to a bail in this regard. Because that is the inherent power which is being there with the high court itself. Now, when you are exercising this power with respect to maybe under the inherent power, maybe under the constitutional power, under 226 or under Article 32, or even when you go to under 136. Now, the facts and circumstances of the case becomes very important. The aspect is because when we look at this aspect of bail and the court exercising this power in any of the provisions which is being given to the courts, maybe 226, 482, 32, and so. If you look at, we always say when a bail is to be granted, bail is a matter of right in a billable offense. But there are circumstances wherein Supreme Court has denied bail to certain persons in a billable offense, which is a matter of right. Therein, in the interest of public, the court said that you won't be allowed to be on bail if you don't follow the directions of the court, though it may be a bailable offense. Like we can have the example of Subrata Roy. Though the offenses which were there, they were all bailable in nature. But the court's direction in the interest of public at heart. So whether you are having Article 226, whether you are applying Section 482 CRPC or Article 32, wherever it goes, a very valid point has come from Ayush in this regard, that now how to exercise this jurisdiction, and certain people this jurisdiction changes, means this discretion changes when it is with the court itself. The registry plays a very important role, and he must be telling it better how many cases are being listed to be there and the particular cases are to be heard before the court itself. Now, the bail aspect, the discretion. Now, this discretion, can you give a uniform structure for it? Can you give a uniform structure depending upon the case and the requirement of the case which the court has to exercise? Can you touch upon the power of the constitutional courts in this regard? Supreme Court is saying again and again, Supreme Court has given a lot of directions. Even in the Aparna case also, wherein the Supreme Court gave certain directions with respect to how you are balancing the rights of the accused with the victim. You are actually asking the accused to go to the victim. The particular person, you are actually making the particular victim to be in contact with the accused. So how this is required to be balanced with respect to the jurisdiction which the courts may exercise. See, if you refer to Article 226, if a particular person approaches under Article 226, the court may give any direction, the court may give any, the court may ask, the court may give, the court may deny, the court may not deny. So this discretion which is being given to the courts, now even this discretion is being given to the Court of Session also. Even this discretion is being given to the magistrate also. But how this discretion is being exercised by the courts, depending upon case to case and so, is a very important aspect. And this discretion is not, in this particular discussion, I think we are limiting us to bail. Now see, but this discretion is only not limited to bail. This discretion is in a such a way it's so unfettered, wherein it is very difficult to come up with a set of certain conditions which are required to be followed. Like Supreme Court saying something, giving certain directions. Now, is the High Court following those directions in this regard? Supreme Court has again said something. So, how you can actually make these directions of the Supreme Court to curb the jurisdiction, to curb certain discretion of the other courts which are inferior to the Supreme Court. Now, when we refer to Article 32 and Article 226, now, Article 226 and Article 32, both the Supreme Court and the High Courts have concurrent jurisdiction of what you are going to say, how the jurisdiction is to be exercised, how the discretion is to be exercised. Now, again, this question will come. If you compare 226 and if you take up Article 32, when they have concurrent jurisdiction, so how does it exercises jurisdiction? Whom you can question? You can go against it under Article 136, against the order. But other than that, how you will actually see how does the court has, in a judicious manner, has exercised that jurisdiction. Very good afternoon, sir. Vijay sir has joined us.
Good afternoon, Gautam. I just thought that I will say hi to both of you and good
afternoon.
Anubhav, good afternoon and welcome. Apologies for joining late, but I thought that I will just come in between and say hi to you all. Excellent topic. And Shikhar, thank you for the invitation. You gave it to me. And Ayush and Shreyans, I think you are the panelist and you are speaking on a very excellent topic that is called. And you have got an excellent speaker. Gautam is working in this area. Anubhav is also has been working in this particular area.
Thank you, sir, for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. You people continue with your discussion. Maybe I will hear you at the background.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So this discretion now, whether discretion, if not exercised in a judicious manner, now this is the question which is need to be put up, because there can't be a set of formulas, there can't be a set of guidelines which will limit the courts to decide in this aspect. What is required to be done is required, and therein we cannot ask the court, we cannot put the court, and the court should not exercise discretion. So this though it's an unfettered discretion, but this discretion should be exercised in a more judicious manner than putting up, then in a way going out of the jurisprudence of bail, which we are seeing in various cases, which has come up before everyone and before the Supreme Court also. Now,
yes.
Should I?
Sir, we have quite limited time, so I will switch to Mr. Anubhav, sir. Sorry to interrupt you in between. Sir, my question is, as sir pointed out rightly, that facts and circumstances are some sort should be there, and that the assessment of the facts and circumstances need to be there. But the prima facie word was introduced, and the prima facie word is often practiced that to be seen to grant bail or some sort of in an initial level. So for the special acts like POSCO, UAPA, or any like Prohibition of Money Laundering Act, so there is some sort, do you think there is some sort of more detailed check of fact should be there, or prima facie principles which are established in Captain Jagjit Singh case? It is enough for those, because it also creates a unfettered discretion, which we are all discussing about. Over to you, sir.
Right, Shreyans, because we are talking about the idea of discretion, we are talking about inconsistency. Because of the discretion, there is an inconsistency. Because you see, when you talk about special legislations like SC/ST Act or POCSO or all these special legislations, they, in certain cases, they have certain exact provisions introduced by the legislature in itself, making the bail in itself a little stringent. When you talk about, the NDPS Act, in certain cases, there are provisions which are making the provisions for bail stringent. That is one thing which I certainly would like to point out here. That the court also feel they are in a fix to release the persons on bail. And the offences or the cases, the statutes which I named, POCSO, you talk about NDPS, you talk about SC/ST Act, and all those cases which are the terrorist activities, MACOCA, or all those legislations which are there. So these special statutes certainly have the arrested persons have a heavy burden to prove that they must be released on bail. That is one thing. The other thing which I would like to highlight is that the powers which Mr. Ayush rightly pointed out, that the magistrates were the real forerunners of the administration of criminal justice in India. They are under pressure as to their administrative capacity in which they are working, not just their judicial capacities, because they have powers to release, but they do not exercise powers because of some reasons. And some unknown reasons, when I say it is not just unknown, because we talk about independence of judiciary, and independence is threatened not from legislature, not from executive, but in most of the cases from judiciary in itself. So there is an independence, the threat of independence of judiciary is from the judiciary in itself in certain cases. And that has to be understood, that how the superintendence which is exercised by the high courts, whether that superintendence is working in a positive manner or otherwise. So that is also to be understood, that you say that the bail is rule, but when a particular officer grants bail, how the high court is tackling that particular thing. So it is not just about the theoretical aspects, rather the enforcement of such laws. We can obviously go on making changes and making reforms in the legislative aspects. But then unless the implementation part is properly taken up by the courts are in fact liberal in granting bail, certainly keeping into consideration the safety and security, certainly keeping into consideration the basic requirement, because in case of bail, we are actually securing the presence of the arrested person. So if that can be secured, If that possibility can be maintained, then we can certainly have those kind of conditions which are quite reasonable, and bail could actually, be a thing by which, because the person, the person is the presumption of innocence, the basic or the cardinal principle of criminal law is attached, and the person is still an under trial person. And as Mr. Ayush rightly pointed out, in Hussain Ara Khatun and other cases, the Supreme Court of India was, cognizant of these facts which have been brought, particularly in the state of Bihar. The situation was like that the persons who have been arrested for minor offenses, very small offenses, they were languishing in jails for more than 10 years, and the maximum punishment was 1 year or 3 years or something like that. And those persons were behind bars their entire childhood, because at that point of time, even the JJ Act and all those things were not there in place. So the entire their childhood was behind bars, and just because of one bail provision, and that is why 436A was later introduced. But still, because we have so much of discretion available, and that discretion is not properly exercised, that is a problem, and that the entire criminal justice system is facing that particular problem. And still, the right of personal liberty is in peril, because on the false pretext of also, on the basis of a very, on a concocted kind of facts and circumstances, there can be an abuse of the process of law, and a person can be sent behind bars, won't be released so easily, because we have such a kind of.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I will come back to the Ayush, sir, that as we discussed that certain conditions are there and certain principles are being set up by the Supreme Court to grant bail. And now we were heading towards the special acts regarding the bail, like stringent provisions are there, and like in the UAPA section 430D, and certain like provisions are there. Recently, one of the famous ground of granting bail is anonymity of charges. Recently, Supreme Court granted bail to KG Najib, Union of India versus KG Najib, a very famous case, and the Supreme Court granted the bail, quoting that personal liberty, a constitutional setup, has the duty to protect the personal liberty of the person, despite he was facing the charges UAPA, which seems to be very draconian, but facing terrorist charges, again, suspicion have always been the accused side, because you have to prove that he is not terrorist, something like that. So, and I will also go back to Varavara Rao, Mr. Varavara Rao. He was also granted bail on the health condition, actually. Again, one of the earlier setup principle regarding the bail, that if the health was the infirm and all that, the court can grant bail. But interestingly, on the same principle, on the Bhima Koregaon case, Swami Stan, despite he's old, 83 years old person, and he's facing some sort of health issues, as he quoted in his bail application, the special court rejected it. So I would like to say that Apex Court, the highest court of law, is granting bail despite knowing the draconian drafting of the provision, and special courts are not granting bail on the same thing. How do you see that that two conflicting parallel approaches there? How it deprives the personal liberty? And so over to you, Ayush.
See, one thing that you have to understand is that these special acts, they cannot be seen in the same way as the principal acts like the Indian Penal Code and all of them. I'll give you a little example. So CRPC section 438 calls for an anticipatory bail, whereas in the SC/ST Act, which is an enabling provision, all right, they are made to curb some very heinous evil in this society. For example, SC/STs have been the depressed classes from time immemorial in this country. So there is an enabling provision to protect them from all the, incarceration and from all the discrimination that they suffer. So there is an SC/ST Act. So there is a section 18 in that SC/ST Act, which states that you cannot be granted anticipatory bail. So the Supreme Court in the year 2018 wanted to give some procedural safeguards to the people, because they were aware that, the bail is very difficult to achieve in SC/ST matters. So they said that the FIR cannot be lodged without a preliminary inquiry of 7 days. They also brought in some more procedural safeguards. Now, what the legislature did is to circumvent the Supreme Court judgment, which watered down this special act. The legislature brought back Section 18A in the year 2019 and said to water down the recommendations of the Supreme Court, that no preliminary inquiry or investigation is required for the registration of FIR, nothing of that sort, and therefore no judgment or no order can bar the anticipatory bail provision. No anticipatory bail can be granted. Then I come back to UAPA, I come to NDPS. These are very strong laws. They provide some kind of a reverse, presumption. The presumption, if the possession or in NDPS matters is proved with the person with whom the contraband is found, then the presumption is against the accused, and the accused now has to prove that he is innocent, and therefore the burden is not on the prosecution. So you have to be very fair, when you are coming on to UAPA. But still, the Supreme Court in last, I guess on 17th of March, passed a judgment called Fakhre Alam versus State of UP, in which it said that even in UAPA matters, the compulsive bail, the default bail under Section 167, subsection 2 is a fundamental right. Now, see, they are giving this kind of, that sanctity to the bail, even passed in such, heinous UAPA matters, NDPS matters, SC/ST matters. These are not theft. These are not crimes against property. These are not crimes against, these are crimes against society. They hold, if these crimes are committed, crimes like, the circulation and harboring of contraband, then the terrorist activities under UAPA or the SC/ST Act, these are crimes against society at large. They are so serious crimes that here the special courts are using their bail provisions very sparingly and very cautiously. Last but not the least, I would just conclude by saying this: who are special judges? What are special courts? Do you think that these are specially empowered judges? No, it's an existing court in the district court, which is demarcated for those particular matters. And they are simple district court judges. What do you think? Are there some Supreme Court justices holding? Is it an ad hoc panel by the Supreme Court judges? No, they are the district court judges holding such important matters. So let's not expect something very powerful, to come out from these special judges. They are district court judges under the supervision of the Supreme Court. Their matters will again be subject to supervision and the checks and balances of the High Court.
Though I will counter you, Ayush, by saying that when powers comes, responsibility also comes. Then according now, sir, one of the main principles of parity, which has often been discussed in the granting bail. So I will quote another example. Recently, very famous case of Mr. Munawar Farooqui, a stand-up comedian, as you all know. He was denied bail 3 times. Then Apex Court accepted his bail regarding that the charges, that evidence was not there. But at the same time, his friend Sadakat Khan denied the bail by the lower court. He argued the principle of parity on that case, but the lower court cancelled his bail application. And at the same time, the person facing same charges or same accusation had been held on. He was granted bail on the same ground. But what the lower court, what do you think, sir? Lower court is creating a sort of haphazard while executing while granting bail, or some sort of there is no clarity with Supreme Court, though have set up various precedent, but Supreme Court itself not sure about when to apply what. So over to you, Anubhav sir.
Shreyansh, indeed there is some sort of confusion because of which, it's not exactly the confusion. On one hand, it's a kind of dichotomy, you can say, or you can say, I must not say, but a certain kind of hypocritical kind of attitude, like stating on one hand that you must do this, and no, I don't feel good when you do this. So this attitude is little, attitudes do matter. And when we talk about changes, when you talk about reforms, when you talk about new things, you have to bring change in the attitude. Now, this judgment, which has been recently passed by the Supreme Court, it's a wonderful judgment. It's a very important, which Aparna Bhatt. But I really would like to see the changes that will be incorporated by the high courts and the lower courts in that respect. So certainly, as rightly pointed out, that it is important that the enforcement of these provisions or these guidelines are important, because you find there are several judgments on, in fact, with respect to bail, even after Gurubakh Singh CBR, which was a constitutional judge bench judgment, there has been inconsistencies while granting bail, in fact, anticipatory bail only. You can see Sanjay Chandra versus CBI, Sanjay Dutt versus CBI again, or that the sitting MP Sadhvi Pragya Singh's judgment. You see, all these judgments, they have come up with certain inconsistencies also, because with, again, as I told you, with discretion, this kind of possibility is always there, and with certain considerations, because you can file several number of petitions for bail every on other different grounds. So there is no limitation on the number of the petitions, and then with each new ground, a person can file a separate petition for bail. But then, yes, I think to some extent the legislative intervention is required so that this discretion which is available can be guided and to some extent curtailed also in certain cases, that I feel be introduced.
Thank you, sir. On that point, I will like to open the panelists for accepting the question, and all the participants can ask their questions. The questions should be crisp and very much clarify, and the objective of the panel discussion is the time boundaries can be fulfilled. So all the participants can ask their question one by one. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Sir, one of my questions is like there has been a recent trend of forum shopping, or we can say bench hunting, where one of the accused gets a bail rejected or withdraws his bail application and then moves to the other bench for the grant of bail application. So, what do you think this recent new trend have an impact on an inconsistency in bail? Any of the panelists can answer this.
There are two things. I think Gautam wanted to start.
Yeah, you can see the answer. I think we both will have the same. I think we like it. Because see, this is not being appreciated. What is happening is, if you are generally it is being like that. If you are going to a bench and the bench has denied bail, rejected the bail, then you are going to again to some other bench. Now this is not being appreciated recently, but this is happening, and I think the High Court should look into in this regard that the person who applied for bail in a particular court should again apply the successive application in the same court itself. Yes, Anbo sir, if you add.
Yeah. Right, Gautam. There are two things which, again, on this point, I would like to highlight, Shikhar, which you raised, a very important concern, because bench hunting is one thing which is often done in starting with the lower court till the Supreme Court of India. That if my matter or my bail is placed before a particular judge, depending upon the judge, a bail can be granted or it might get rejected. There are two circumstances. Suppose a judge is quite liberal with respect to granting of a bail, then if that matter is brought before that particular judge, it is always easier. And a related concept is the face value of the lawyer, which is again very, very problematic. So bail should not be granted on the face value of the lawyer, which is again a very common phenomena in the lower courts, the High Court or in the Supreme Court. That on the face value of the lawyer, if the bail is granted, that is really problematic. Now, these things could not be quantified. These things could not be evidenced properly. But if these things do take place, a summary rejection or a summary approval should not be allowed. There must be some sort of parity. There must be some sort of certainty that a bail will be granted in this case and won't be granted in such cases. That is something like, to some extent, I would say that the special legislations, what they have done, they have tried to introduce that kind of consistency by bringing such provisions.
So I would just complement that answer by saying that, the Supreme Court in its Shahzad Khan judgment has said that, exactly what Gautam sir said. But this High Court is itself playing with the Constitution in such a way that it's, creating provisions for forum shopping. I'll give you an example. So today, if you want to seek bail, you will first go to, magistrate under 437. You will go to a sessions under 439. Then you can go to, a High Court under 439. And to the same High Court, you can again apply under 227. So it is not important that the judge who is holding a roster for bail provisions is also holding the roster for writ petitions. So a judge who is hearing 439 matters will not be the judge who will be hearing 226 matters. So the forum shopping will happen by itself. So the High Court has to, then the High Court will crib about its multiplicity of proceedings. But High Court ne pange bhi lene 226 se. last point I would like to bring is that High Court is playing very dangerously with 226. I was always of the view that habeas corpus till my first year is only against the state, but then it started enforcing against the private persons. If you have section 97 express provision in the CRPC, why do you want to bring in 226 CRPC to perform the same function that the magistrate can do in his district? High Court has to play, and High Court is playing with it. It's dangerous, and forum shopping is invited by that.
Ayush, just adding to it, Ayush, I think writ jurisdiction appears to be more broader for advocates than going to a district under section 97, right?
Sorry, sir, I didn't get you.
For the councils also, writ jurisdiction is very wider.
It's even more lucrative, sir. For lawyers.
It's the council who should go under.
Going to a magistrate, going to a High Court.
Okay, sir. Any more questions from participants?
Hello, this is Advocate Rahul Tiwari. If I'm
Yes, sir. Yes.
Hello, sir. It's me, Advocate Rahul Tiwari, and I've recently started practicing in District Court. I started practicing in District Court of Gurgaon, and recently, when I was doing a little bit of research, I came across a problem. Like, suppose a party initiates an FIR against a person who's living in different state. Okay. Then if the arrest warrant is issued, whether it's a bailable matter or a non-bailable matter, so that the accused, can he take anticipatory bail from the High Court from where he's residing, or he has to come to Haryana and has to take anticipatory bail from Gurgaon Session Court, or
you can take anticipatory bail from wherever.
Wherever.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hope, Rahul, sir, your questions is clarified by the panelist. Any more questions? So it seems that question round is over now. So on that regard, sir, I request all the panelists to give concluding remark that what should be the approach, what should be the principle of approach, and how the practical reality can be changed with those principles regarding granting the bail and having the parity or having some sort of synchronization between the earlier set principles and the discretionary power, which was perfectly opined by Mr. Justice Krishna Iyer. Over to you all, to all the panelists. 2 minutes for the conclusion.
Ayush, you may please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. My only message to all the young aspiring lawyers here is that please don't be very expensive. A bail application in Punjab Haryana High Court costs from a senior advocate 11 lakh rupees. So I will talk about the exemplary bonds, exemplary costs someday else. A lawyer's fee was discussed extensively in Hussain-Ara Khatun as well. A good quality lawyer costs 11 lakh, and this is just my own humble Punjab and Haryana. I'm not ready even to imagine what the cost might be in places of metropolitans like Delhi, Mumbai. So please be a little reasonable. Please be a little sympathetic to your clients. Once you are able to get financial stability in your life, do ensure that you're doing a lot of pro bono matters. The registry will someday get more, simplified. The judges will definitely develop some kind of law that would help them to bring some kind of uniformity, and not this arbitrariness will someday end. But it will not end if the bar itself will not empower the bench. The bar itself needs to first self-regulate. It's only then we can expect from the bench that the bench will also regulate. So be a very kind and a very diligent lawyer. Please don't charge a lot, and never offer money to the judge, or never even claim to your client that, if you pay me 11 lakh rupees, then I'll give 50% of it to the judge, and then something like that. And this is just a practical aspect, because the legal aspect will be explained to you by both the professors there. So that's my only suggestion as a young lawyer.
Thank you, Ayush. Like practically giving that what should be the approach on a humanity level. I will come to Mr. Gautam, sir. Sir, concluding remarks, please.
See, with respect to in this regard is what I have an opinion is, what I would say, see, the personal liberty is very important. Personal liberty of the person is very important, and the denial of bail from the lowest court where a person applies for bail. So it should not be a particular non-independent judiciary who is actually deciding the bail application. It should be decided in a judicial independence. Then only we can say, with respect to the judicious exercise of judicial discretion which is. And this judicial discretion cannot be taken from the court, but it should be in such a way that it should be guided in a different way. Like the Arnesh Kumar judgment brought a lot of things with respect to arrest. It is being implemented in a different way. So this discretion with the court, which the court is looking, see at the time of granting the court, it looks into the case diary and other aspects. Now, these things cannot be discarded in the court. That what has happened at the time of the investigation and what is happening during that time. So unfettered discretion, but it should be exercised judicially. On the other hand, I would appreciate the judgment of the Supreme Court with respect to the Arnab Goswami case. Though it was the Arnab Goswami case, it went, he was granted bail. But the order of bail, which was granted to Arnab Goswami, was that he took bail from the jail superintendent itself. So from that day itself, by submitting amount of 50,000, the amount which was fixed or whatever, the person got bail. So these particular provisions with respect to the discretion of the court should also be looked into. That if the bail is being given to the person, though an exercise of judicial discretion which is to be judiciously exercised by any court which is exercising this discretion, because judiciary is the last hope, which we say, and still we say, we have hope in the judiciary, in the judicial system, in the administration of justice. So this last hope should not be taken away from any person and curtailing his life and personal liberty if not required. So on this, I will just.
We'll take this point. So the last hope should be there and the hope should be there. And the hope is there. It's because Supreme Court have proved in last Hadia case that...
Shreyansh, just adding, everybody can't approach the Supreme Court. This is again a very different aspect. So from the lowest court itself, the hope should be there.
Yes, sir. Very rightly pointed out, sir. Now we'll come to Mr. Anubhav Kumar, sir. Sir, what's your take on this? Concluding remarks.
To conclude with, because we are talking about the certainty aspect here, but we must not forget about, because certainty comes when you have discretion. So in case of conditions, we are talking that there must be reasonableness, certainty, while imposing conditions for granting bail. But there are provisions under CRPC which talks about granting of bail as a statutory order. Like we have 167 proviso, we have 436 capital A, wherein a person has to be released on bail. And if in those cases the bail is not being granted, that is problematic. In certain cases, it might be found that the bail is not being granted in those cases also. That is one thing. And secondly, the court should be more pragmatic. The court should be more practical while granting bail and while awarding bail, and should not be guided with all sorts of undue pressure under which they are working. Like the power is there, but they are not exercising such powers of releasing the persons on, even on security or surety to their satisfaction, because they feel that they should not release because of the pressure they might be finding from the administrative side on them. These two things. And the third, the point of reform. From the point of reform, certainly legislature can come up with certain changes on the law of bails, which is there existing in the CRPC. And in the absence of the same, the Supreme Court can come up with certain guidelines further that in these cases, there should be the criteria for deciding bail applications as far as the offenses are concerned. If these are serious offenses, severe offenses, the court may be strict. But in all these cases, there can be a set of offenses in which the court should be liberal. Even the Court of Magistrate, the Supreme Court should be particular about this fact that the magistrate shall release those persons in such cases if it is to the satisfaction of the magistrate. So if in light of all these changes, if these changes can be introduced, then I feel certainly that you can see certain changes at the grassroots level also.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to thank all the panelists. They take out their precious time because it's weekday and we know how the time is precious and all that, constantly logging up into the online things. And I would also like to thank Mr. Ashutosh Tripathi, sir, again giving us the opportunity to organizing panel discussion